Mario RPGs. If you're a fan of Mario, you surely know about his RPGs. They might not be as iconic, prevalent, or system-selling as the mainline games, Kart, or Party. Yes! But that hasn't stopped them from making impacts on so many fans and remaining in their hearts over the years. Even a lot of people who don't typically like RPGs love these games, and for good reason. They're fun, charming, addicting, well-paced, and great entry points for RPG newcomers. Most importantly, they let us view the universe of Mario through a whole new light. The world, characters, and story are generally a lot more fleshed out than they would be elsewhere, and it makes these games worth seeing through to the end for more reasons than just to get it over with. At least that can be said about like 2/3 of the games on this list, but let's not worry about that just yet. Unlike, say, Mario Kart or Party, there are several Mario RPG series that all fall under the same umbrella. Since I don't feel like making so many videos, we'll be ranking all games under that umbrella together to see how they all stack up against each other. Those being Super Mario RPG, the Paper Marios, the Mario and Luigis, and any miscellaneous game like Mario and Rabbids. Basically, any game listed under the RPG category on the Mario Wiki counts. Except for some of the Mario Tennis and golf games, which are only in the category due to how their story modes work. I'm obviously not counting those, as I'd much rather save them for a potential Mario Sports ranking over lumping them in with the proper RPGs. Also, just like with the Zelda ranking, remakes will not be ranked separately from the originals, as they're not too different from each other. Besides, the only remade RPGs I've played both versions of are Thousand Year Door and Bowser's Inside Story. I've played only the original Super Mario RPG and only the remake of Superstar Saga. I'm also not going to be ranking the side modes in the Mario and Luigi remakes, mainly because I just don't want to play them. Without further ado, let's go! Man, I can't wait to talk about these awesome games. Shame I have to get the lame ones out of the way first. No worries, the bottom entry couldn't possibly be that bad. I mean, this is Nintendo. For all their issues, they at least care about making fun, quality games. There's no way they could ever churn out such a frustrating, insulting, mean-spirited slap in the face to anyone with a brain. The worst Mario RPG couldn't possibly be that bad. Right? You know, I could just leave it at that, promote my video on the subject, and call it a day. But I'm not f***ing doing that. I have genuinely never come across a more insulting, agonizing, hateful piece of so-called media than Paper Mario Sticker Star. The lengths this supposed game goes to piss off its players, the series fans, and anyone with a brain is honestly kind of impressive. But Platy, it's Nintendo. There's no way it's that irredeemable. Shut the f*** up. You don't get it. You don't understand how much of an assault to the senses this is. It's insulting enough that it came out 5 years after the last game in the series that was, up to that point, renowned for its intuitive, exciting gameplay, engaging stories, charming characters, and creative worlds, only to strip away all of those unique attributes, leaving nothing but a hollow, bland, sanitized shell that would make even the worst of Illumination look like the work of Miyazaki. Yeah, it sucks that Nintendo threw out the series' whole identity like it was nothing and pompously acted like the effort was pointless and unneeded in interviews, but surely they have to have left at least something of value. Who the f*** do you think you're kidding? No! There is nothing here! There is no story. The only plot points are Bowser taking Peach for the upteenth time and this unexplained sticker comet shattering. There are no events or interesting developments between the intro and ending cutscene urging you to press on. There is no world building. They just lazily copy-pasted level themes and aesthetics from New Super Mario Bros. Without offering any interesting set pieces or lore or anything at all to make them stand out beyond this one is a biome. There is one character, and she's the most insufferable, arrogant, unlikable, and useless piece of filth in all of fiction. Everyone else is a soulless cardboard cutout of an existing character who serves no purpose beyond spouting an unfunny quip every now and then. Even Bowser has been reduced to generic final boss monster. Yeah, that's right. Bowser, one of the funniest and best written characters in the franchise, wasn't given a single line of dialogue. They straight up said no joy and whimsy allowed without saying it. Oh, but it's okay. Surely the gameplay is good. Are you fucking shitting me? No, of course it's not good. It doesn't even come close to being playable. The combat is the most excruciating I've ever seen in a game. You're given no room for strategy thanks to every goddamn option you have being expendable. And you can't even choose which enemy to attack, which NES-era RPGs let you do. And at the end of it all, you get nothing worthwhile from fighting. Just more coins and stickers which you can readily find on the overworld to waste in more battles. How the f*** do some people claim this dog shit is anything better than dog shit? If you think you're safe on the overworld, lay off the damn copium. There are more than a few roadblocks with painfully cryptic solutions, most of which do nothing but force you to backtrack to find one specific thing, then backtrack further to Deckelberg to turn said thing into a sticker, and only then can you use it. And if you dare use the wrong thing in the wrong place, you just waste it and have to repeat the whole process all over again. They even slapped this BS onto the bosses, which are unwinnable without seeking out these things. This game was in development for 3 years. It had the most obvious narrative and design issues imaginable, and not a single dev cared to fix them. They knowingly let Nintendo, a company known for fun, well-designed, polished games, put out a game so soulless, insulting, and poorly designed, it feels like it was made out of spite. An active assault against the role-playing genre, against Paper Mario, against Mario in general, against fans, against anyone with a brain who dared to want a good, fun game. And to see something so spiteful come from Mario is just such a nice f***ing bonus. I could make 1,000 feature-length essays on this product, and that would still be nowhere near enough to convey my sheer rage towards it. Because a product born out of hatred deserves nothing but hatred. You're gonna see me on the f***ing news if this shit keeps going.
Belongs in the trash!
In the Paper Mario series, we always challenge ourselves to bring something fresh to the action-adventure genre.
Are you f***ing kidding me? After all the vitriol, all the backlash, all the faith lost from one game, you mean to tell me they learned nothing from the catastrophe they just unleashed and immediately began work on a sequel with the exact same formula? They had 4 years to come up with something better, yet they still stuck with the fundamentally broken anti-RPG nobody liked. I have never seen a more tone-deaf move from this company than this. Metroid Prime Federation Force might as well have been an English localization of Mother 3 compared to this shit. But at least it's not as bad as Sticker Shock. Yeah, like that's a real accomplishment. You know what other game people use this pathetic excuse for? Sonic Forces, one of the most insulting and lazy games in Sonic's whole library that destroys everything people love about that series. I may not have been shot in the head, but the chest isn't exactly better. The combat has the exact same issues as before, with the reliance on consumables, trial and error BS, and gatekeeping any forms of fun, strategy, or purpose. And this time, Kamek can now show up at random to make your life a living hell because this game and this company hate it when you have fun. But you can increase your max paint by fighting. Yeah, as if the overworld doesn't already give you more paint than the average Neo Splash main. The overworld and bosses still force you to go on wild goose chases for specific things, now throwing in colorless spots, hidden rescue toads, and a bunch of other annoying bullshit designed solely to waste your time. Yeah, but there's no toad to tell you which thing you need. Yeah, as if that solves the location of and backtracking needed to get it. And do you want to know the most insulting part of all this? This game is aware that it's an unplayable piece of sludge. It makes several self-aware meta jokes about how poorly designed it is and how uninspired the script is. Intelligent Systems knew this was a horrible piece of filth, and they didn't care. They had all the reasons and chances to return this series to form, yet they chose to continue butchering it with such infuriating design and Joss Whedon-ass writing. Its creative areas and few funny moments can't salvage it, and people have the gall to defend this piece of shit, claiming it to be misunderstood or secretly good. As much as I hate being called a shill just for liking the games of a brain-dead corporation, this kind of behavior makes y'all deserve the shill label. By defending major slip-ups like this, you are letting Nintendo get away with blatantly insulting their art and fans. You're letting them get away with charging full price for every game, including ones that are blatantly unfinished and half-baked. With selling ports of multi-generation old games for obscene prices. With taking down any and all preservations of their work while offering inferior counterparts of their own, if at all. With suing anyone who dares mod their consoles to bankruptcy. With refusing to get with the damn times and listen to their fans. Being a slight step up from the worst of the worst should not be seen as an accomplishment. You know a product like this can be better, so demand better. Unless you somehow want another product as lifeless, dull, frustrating, and insulting as Paper Mario Color Splash. Anyway, the worst real Mario RPG is... Bet you forgot this game existed. Puzzle & Dragons is a puzzle game with RPG elements made for mobile phones that seems to be fairly popular in Japan. It launched in 2012 and it's still getting support 13 years later. But we're not talking about the main Puzzle & Dragons. We're talking about Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition, the crossover on the 3DS that sticks the P&D gameplay into the world of Mario. You move through linear NSMB themed levels, defeating enemies with the power of Candy Crush. It seems fine at first. The early game does a fine job at introducing the P&D mechanics. It's fun strategizing how to carefully move an orb to get the most out of your turn before the enemies make their moves. And it's super satisfying when you line everything up perfectly and wipe the screen clean. Unfortunately, as the game progresses, you're introduced to stronger enemies, on top of you having to handle way more elements. And as such, the difficulty skyrockets past the first two worlds. It honestly starts to become insanely luck-based, since you have to pray that you have enough of a specific orb type if you want to take out the enemies before they bum rush you. And since you always have to bring certain allies into your deck to match with the orbs of that level, your options can feel way too limited. How do you solve this? Go back and grind. Grind until you can fuse the strongest allies and wipe the floor with the level you got stuck on. You expect me to play this for 16 worlds? Also, I'm not one to ignore a game if its graphics aren't hyper-realistic 8K, but holy shit, this is such an eyesore of a game. If the generic New Super Mario Bros. Aesthetic wasn't enough, the cheap, soulless presentation coupled with the uncanny PNGs of everyone with horrible outlines and tweening animation reminiscent of a certain Bowser gif is just repulsive. It's by far one of the ugliest games in the entire franchise, making Mario Party 8 look like Mario Wonder in comparison. It sure helps that they didn't even bother making their own music, since 90% of the soundtrack is ripped straight out of New Soup Wii and 3D World. Jeez, it's no wonder I dropped this game 4 worlds in. I already experienced everything I needed to, and from what I've seen, the rest of the game is just more of the same slog. I already don't really care that much for Match 3 outside Begooled, and trying to haphazardly tack on RPG mechanics just doesn't work. Maybe it's just a skill issue, but I could not stand this game. Sorry to the 10 Puzzle & Dragons fans watching this, that's just how I feel. Mario and Luigi Paper Jam was so easy to get right. Bringing Mario's two main RPG series together, letting their wild worlds and characters interact with each other should have been an easy slam dunk. Unfortunately, this game was made in Nintendo's dark age, where they just couldn't be bothered to make any interesting characters or worlds. Instead, they took the lazy route, only using paper versions of recurring characters and staying in one of the blandest, most soulless depictions of the Mushroom Kingdom to date. The only remotely unique elements they pulled from the Paper Mario games were from SS. There's no Star Spirits, no Merle family, no partners. Hell, Toadette shows up in this game, yet there's no Paper Toadette because the only Paper Mario she showed up in was Thousand Year Door, which is just too high quality and polished to be referenced in the safe, sanitized paycheck for 5-year-olds. That series' sorry state somehow rubbed off on the other one too. Aside from Starlo, there are no Mario and Luigi exclusive characters or enemies. No beans, no hooligans, no shell tops, not a single other wacky Scrimblow Bimblow. They literally treat two Bowsers as the greatest threat the world has ever faced. Not the Shroobs, not the Blorbs, not the Nightmare King, just one extra Bowser. I'm not saying the erasure of the past, far superior RPGs was intentional, but I'm also not saying it. Regarding Starlo being the only RPG exclusive character in this game, it is just so delightful that they happen to make her the most annoying nuisance in the third dimension. She had a bit of an attitude in her prior appearances, but she meant well and acted as a fine enough guide. Here though, she's a complete bully. She does nothing but mock and torment Luigi any chance she gets. Like, girl, what did he ever do to you? In fact, the whole game seems to have it out for Luigi, making him the butt of every joke in the Mushroom Kingdom. The game's story literally starts because he sneezes and knocks over the Book of Loptier. I'm not kidding. You know who else this game completely bastardized? Peach. The Mario and Luigi series already had a poor track record with Peach's handling, yet here, they tried to make her self-aware of how much she gets kidnapped in a game where she gets kidnapped by Bowser. I sure love it when pieces of shit make light of themselves being pieces of shit without doing anything to fix them. This whole game is so uncharacteristically mean-spirited. It's tiresome, out of touch, and not even funny. That's another big gripe I have with this game. It's not funny. Mario RPGs usually excel when it comes to humor, yet I can count the amount of times this game made me laugh on one hand. It's nauseatingly unfunny. It honestly feels more like an Illumination Mario movie than the actual Illumination Mario movie. It didn't even need any out-of-place celebrity voices or pop songs. They just had to make everything as dull, annoying, and lifeless as possible. Speaking of lifeless, take a good long look at the overworld. On top of them using the most generic themes, they're so tiny, lazily designed, and a complete chore to run through.
But Platy, aren't you forgetting the best part?
Don't you f***ing dare.
Toad missions are sublime. The greatest experience in Mario and gaming history. So beautiful and majestic, they may as well be a gift from God himself. Let me tell you, Toad missions are just...
Don't listen to the Viva Kids simp. The Toad missions are literally just filler they threw in to pad out the game's runtime due to how small the areas are. And on the topic of filler, the papercraft battles, which I forgot to mention in the script, are boring and bad and a complete waste of time. At least the combat's pretty fun, all things considered. Paper Mario's a helpful buddy, being able to tank damage and deal multiple hits to multiple enemies at once. The card system is fun, the bros attacks are great as always, and I really like the trio attacks. They're basically Mario Party minigames you can play to inflict massive damage if you're good enough. Aside from the combat and Yoko Shimomura going ham on the soundtrack though, there is very little value within Paper Jam. A huge letdown for both Paper Mario fans and Mario and Luigi fans, and it sucks that this was the last game in the latter series for nearly a decade.
They are all the same and generic. If one Toad is bad, then they are all bad. That's kinda racist.
Paper Mario: The Origami King was the first Paper Mario game in 13 years. Is it good? No. It's not necessarily horrible, but you'd think after those two unspeakable war crimes, IS would actually grow a pair and make something creative and fun. Despite all that, Ignorant Systems still gave us a boring slog that doesn't quite live up to what the series once was. I'll start off positive though. This game looks gorgeous. The colors and lighting pop, and they serve the papercraft art style so well. You really feel like you're running through a series of dioramas with how papery everything feels, and it helps that this game also features some unique, memorable locations. And you're traveling across the Mushroom Kingdom with the Origami Princess, Olivia. I love Olivia. She's so charming and funny and adorable and basically the best kind of mascot sidekick. The game's character writing in general is surprisingly decent for what it's worth. I was kind of hooked with the stories of Bobby, Captain Toad, and my man Bowser, and the Origami King himself, Ollie, is a solid enough new villain. I honestly find it really funny how his motivations boil down to Toad racism. He's pretty much the closest Mario's gotten to fighting a Nazi. Bit ironic for an Italian made by the Japanese Japanese, but who cares? While it's not a comedic riot, the game has a handful of funny gags and moments that have made me chuckle. And then there's the soundtrack. The composers had no reason to go as hard as they did with the soundtrack, yet they still locked in and composed a massive playlist full of bangers. Seriously, it's kinda puzzling how this game has one of the best soundtracks in the series. I wonder what else Yoshito Sekigawa has composed for. That checks out. Origami King seems like a pretty good game if I'm glazing it so much, so why is it still in the bottom 5? While the characters themselves are fine, the character designs aren't so lucky. They still mostly conform to the same generic designs they've always had with minimal alterations. The folded soldiers you fight are all just origami versions of regular-ass Mario enemies, with no new faces or RPG-specific ones either. And while it is kind of funny for the Legion of Stationery to be regular-ass office supplies who can now speak and enforce genocide, it also feels lazy, and I feel like it would have been better to have original characters made by Ollie who use the office supplies as weapons. Some people made a mod for this game that makes the character designs more interesting, among other changes, and it's wild how much more charming the game is because of said designs. But the big thing that drags Origami King down for me is the gameplay. The tutorial is painfully drawn out, never stops holding your hand with even the most obvious mechanics, and takes hours to completely stop. Because of arbitrary plot reasons, you're forced to wander back and forth across the overworld a ton. For example, to get to Overlook Tower, you have to use the Earth Elemental power, which you have to backtrack to its temple to get, which you have to hunt down several orbs to even open. And you need Bobby to open the Water Elemental Shrine, who conveniently gets knocked off the bridge leading to the shrine, so you have to go all the way back to 1-1 again to save him. It's so tiring, and so much of this padding could have been shaved down or cut entirely. And of course, there's the combat. Yeah, it's unique, but it gets annoying having to do the same ring puzzles over and over again. Your stronger weapons can break, and since there's still no experience or leveling system, there's practically no reason to fight. Yeah, you can buy upgrades, but there's more than enough coins on the overworld. What compels IS to keep putting pointless turn-based combat in games they clearly don't want to be RPGs? Was there anything stopping them from not including this BS and making the game less cluttered? In fact, literally no, because the new paper macho enemies are fought on the overworld like a normal adventure game. So what the hell is the point of this? Man, I just do not understand this game. It has plenty of good elements, and it's very clear the devs wanted to make something fun and had fun making it, but the end result is just a boring, confusing mess that has no idea what it wants to be. Sure, it's a step in the right direction, but a step isn't enough. I want the next non-remake Paper Mario to bring the series all the way back to its former glory, not ever so slightly closer like this game did. Still better than Last of Us 2, though.
That's why you should play games with more Luigi!
Mario and Luigi Dream Team has so much to love. It takes place on such a wonderful setting known as Piolo Island, full of enticing areas that do interesting things with overdone biomes. They're generally creative, fun to explore, and full of whimsy. The whole game has this bizarre dreamlike atmosphere, which makes sense given the whole sleep and dreams theme. It's amplified a ton in the dream world with its psychedelic visuals and mesmerizing music. The soundtrack in general honestly might be the best the Mario and Luigi series has heard. It's so majestic, and it suits the vibes of the real and dream worlds perfectly. Not to mention, this game also gave us Prince Dreambert, the coolest and most epic RPG sidekick to ever exist. Seriously, I fucking love this Team Umizoomi ass Pillow Prince. However, the cracks start to show once you look at the gameplay. Just like with Origami King, the game's tutorial phase is unbearably long. I can usually handle slow starts to big RPGs, but not when it wastes several hours teaching me the most basic mechanics I could already figure out for myself. The entire first half or so of the game is so poorly paced. You spend way more time than you need to in various areas, especially since you have to go into numerous dream worlds for certain tasks, be they major or minor. I like the major ones a fair bit, but they're far more elaborate designs, letting you use the lots of Luigis to their fullest. The minor ones, though, are so bare bones that they end up feeling more like filler. It doesn't help that the combat feels a lot more sluggish than that of the DS games. The long load times and slow speed make battles drag out for far longer than they should. The real world combat still gets the job done with solid mechanics and great bros attacks, but it just boils down to a slower version of the brothers combat combat in Bowser's Inside Story. It might actually be the weakest combat in the series for me, because at least Partners in Time had unique action commands and Paper Jam had Paper Mario. The Dream World combat, though, is a nice shakeup. The dodging has a lot more depth, and it's really satisfying wiping out hordes of enemies with the Luigi-nary attacks, but even that system can get repetitive after a while since most fights boil down to use the screen wiper. The bosses are also very hit or miss, since for every fun one, there's another with poorly telegraphed, overly punishing attacks that feel like they drag on forever. The giant battles are also back, this time with Luigi taking charge, and they're pretty cool, barring Z-Keeper, he kinda sucks. I was also pretty disappointed with the story, to be honest. It gets off to a good start with a welcoming intro to the Piolo Kingdom, but I don't feel like it utilizes its lore or world building to the extent that it should have, and it ends up feeling more like another goose chase to stop Bowser and his minions. In fact, my problems with the story are perfectly summed up with its supposed villain, Phantasma. He's established at the beginning as an almighty nightmare king who brought the Piolo Kingdom to its knees, with all of its people turned to stone. That's such a strong framework for an intimidating villain, but the moment Bowser enters the picture and teams up with him, he loses any and all agency. The rest of the game's conflict is generally caused by Bowser, with Phantasma being little more than another lackey to him. At the end of the game, Bowser betrays Phantasma and casts him off to the side, which could have had weight if Phantasma actually did things and wasn't already just in Bowser's shadow the whole game. So it ends up just completely robbing him of any impact he could have left. Dream Team had the potential to be the best Mario and Luigi by a mile, but so many issues that piled up just made it end up as a lesser Bowser's Inside Story. I didn't want to be this harsh on this game. It's decent, and I'm glad I played it, but its rocky development cycle really shows in the end product, and it just could have done a lot more than it did.
I love going on message boards and complaining about games I've never played.
Super Paper Mario is a weird game. After two critically acclaimed turn-based RPGs that built greatly upon Mario's world, throwing all that away to make a 2D platformer with occasional RPG elements and puzzles was certainly a choice. Now, don't get me wrong, I love 2D Mario. My favorite Mario game of all time is Super Mario World, and to Super Paper Mario's credit, it does a fine job merging platforming with RPG elements. So long as you keep killing enemies, you get stronger at a steady rate, so there's no need to go back and grind. You just need to stay on your toes in tight situations, even if a lot of fights can just be cheesed with items and Bowser's fire breath. The chapters are each divided into 4 individual levels, and they tend to have a lot more varied objectives than just getting from point A to point B. There are multiple playable characters and pixels, each with their own abilities, and they can be fun to play around with. Mario's dimensional flipping is especially clever, and they do some cheeky things with it. Unfortunately, you're forced to switch characters and pixels a ton for the most basic tasks, and it gets very clunky and annoying having to do this so many times on a flimsy Wii remote. This game was very clearly not designed with it in mind, as it was initially made for the GameCube before jumping over to the Wii at the last minute. Not to mention, the levels themselves often have such annoying gimmicks, such as 2 3's grinding mission, 4 4's gravity and backtracking, 5 1's overly long combination lock, 8 4's nauseating maze, and so on and so forth. This game takes so many opportunities to toy with the player, and it gets very annoying. Yet, despite that, I still like it and stick with it. Its digital aesthetic is very unique. It really gives this game more of its own identity, and the worlds are all very dazzling and creative because of it. They play around with the character designs a ton, giving them all sorts of wild shapes and structures that really make them stand out. The soundtrack is an absolute bop, being upbeat and whimsical when it needs to be, yet not afraid to go a little more intense or somber when the time calls for it. And of course, you can't talk about Super Paper Mario without bringing up its story. It starts out simple, albeit with comically high stakes. An evil wizard, Count Bleck, wants to end the multiverse, so Mario must team up with a butterfly thing named Tippy to seek out his friends and stop him. However, as you progress through the game, more and more details are revealed. In between chapters, you get these vague memories of a couple's blossoming relationship. The chapter scenarios wildly vary, but they're all connected by one shared theme. Love. Love for your family, for your friends, your nation, even your enemies. For God's sake, the MacGuffins are pure hearts, for crying out loud. You even get to see what'll happen to the multiverse if you fail, in a bone-chilling, if long, sequence when Sammer's kingdom falls. All of this comes to fruition in the finale, where it's revealed that Tippy and Bleck were once lovers. Their love was forbidden, and the two were forcibly ripped apart by Bleck's tribe. This destroyed him, sending him on a path of hate and misery that led to the formation of the world-ending Chaos Heart. However, in the final hours, the two are able to reaffirm their love for one another, restoring their hope and the Lost Worlds. Hatred and nihilism are destructive, leading people down paths that only end in despair. But by embracing love, hope, and the bonds we share, even the darkest moments can light up. And let me remind you, this is all coming from a Mario game. Sure, Super Paper Mario was a questionable departure from its predecessors and is very annoying to play at times, but damn it if it isn't such a fun, funny, dramatic, intense, heartfelt, and powerful experience overall. It's far from perfect, but it's easy to see why it's gotten such a big cult following over the years. Mario and Luigi Partners in Time is a sci-fi horror game disguised as a Mario RPG. Seriously, I'm kind of impressed with how dark this game is willing to get. They could have just left the Shroobs at scary alien invaders, but they didn't stop there. They showed them ravaging the past Mushroom Kingdom, draining the Toads of their energy to use as fuel, kidnapping the Yoshis to turn into monsters, sticking a facehugger onto Peach, and countless other vile actions, all in the name of mindless destruction. Truly a formidable enemy force you will fear throughout the game thanks to their oppressive influence. Beyond the War of the Worlds, well, it's Mario and Luigi. And Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. Double the bros means double the design possibilities. The overworld itself is a lot more linear than other games in the series, prioritizing puzzle solving in closed off regions to reach the dungeon, similar to what the Paper Mario games do. Thankfully, being able to guide two pairs of bros separately through the overworlds opens the doors for a lot of creative puzzles. Since they each have separate abilities as well as areas only certain bros can reach, you'll really need to get the hang of both pairs' abilities and limitations to get by. The two ages coming together also affects the combat. Battles play out as usual when the pairs are apart, but when all four bros are assembled, you can empower the big bros attacks by pressing their baby counterparts button at the right time, which adds just a bit more depth to an already solid battle system. Unfortunately, they made the mistake of tying bros attacks to items in this game. Yeah, they're plentiful and easy to find, and you always have your basic attacks, but still. It doesn't help that their action commands are very strict. It's easy to mess up a tight input and waste an item doing minimal damage. This next issue is more of a nitpick, but I also wish this game used time travel more as a mechanic. The only place you go to in the present is the hub world in Peach's castle, when every area could have easily had good present and bad past counterparts, with you having to occasionally swap between them to progress, kinda like what some Zelda games do. Also, Peach's castle being fine in the present despite being shroobified in the past pretty much gives away that you win in the end, but like, it's a Mario game, he always saves the day. Also, apparently some people don't like stuff well. Why? I get the tutorials are annoying, but look at him. Look at how polite he is and how he shouts "back to adventure" when he's done talking. While not the best of its kind, Partners in Time is a very solid and underrated entry in the Mario and Luigi series, and it's especially worthy of praise for being the only time Baby Mario was ever cool. Speaking of which, this game also marked the first ever appearance of Baby Peach, making her the only RPG character to show up in Mario Kart. Come on, Nintendo, you can fix that. Put Gino or Vivian or Starlo in World. It's not too late. The Rabbids, Ubisoft's minions before the minions. These annoying little shits were made solely to be annoying little shits and sell minigame collections that probably put Rayman out of a job. Naturally, a crossover between Mario and the Rabbids developed by Ubisoft themselves must have sounded like the perfect first adventure for Mario on the Switch 1. And you wanna know what the most shocking part is? It actually ended up being pretty good. Yeah, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is genuinely a really fun, well-designed strategy game. I'm not kidding, how Ubisoft made a better strategy game than 3DS-era Fire Emblem is beyond me. The Mushroom Kingdom has been left in shambles after a fusion accident with the Rabbids and their antics, and it's up to Mario, his friends, and their Rabbid counterparts to clean up the mess. The 8 party members all have their own distinct skill sets, and it's fun to switch up your loadouts depending on the situation. For example, Rabbid Peach is great for healing, main Peach can tank a lot of damage in other members' place, and Luigi has a ton of range and mobility, making him ideal for siege and escort missions. There's a good variety of enemies and objectives, making each fight something new to look forward to, and you get to play around a ton with unique terrain elements like pipes and ledges. Playing your cards right with your chosen party members and the equipment, skills, and terrain you have at your disposal is super satisfying. Unfortunately, you can only bring out 3 party members at a time, which is made even worse by the fact that you're forced to always use Mario and at least one rabbit, which kind of limits your options. The Yoshis join you way too late and are pretty much useless by then. It's no wonder they got the axe and Sparks of Hope. I kinda wish there were more convenient methods of healing with how much damage some enemies do, so you wouldn't have to bring out Rabbid Peach all the time. I guess there's the extra health option before battle, but there's literally no penalty for using it, so why wouldn't you? The overworld gameplay is a little shallow, and while I'm glad this game isn't mindlessly easy, some of the difficulty spikes, especially in the latter half of the game, are a little excessive. The strong, abundant, annoying enemies, status effects, and occasional misinput made me reset a ton. Despite some flaws, Kingdom Battle is a clever, fun game that really keeps you on your toes. The soundtrack's great too, containing the whimsy you'd expect from a film score. No surprise there, given they got Grant Kirkhope of all people to compose it. Well done, Mario! You achieved the impossible. You made the Rabbids cool.
We're going on a trip in our favorite ship.
Mario and Luigi Brothership is good, y'all are mean. After the Mario and Luigi series declined in sales and goodwill, leading to developer Alpha Dream's bankruptcy, it seemed like the series was dead. Suddenly, almost a decade after Paper Jam, when the world needed it the most, the series returned on the Switch with Mario and Luigi Brothership. Developed this time by Acquire, the studio behind Octopath Traveler, Brothership did a lot of things to refine and modernize the series, for better or for worse. Concordia, the setting of this game, is such a fantastical world, feeling far different from any other land the Mario Brothers have been to. Its various islands are wholly unique and full of wonder. Each one offers something new, be it new enemies, a unique layout, fun puzzles, an interesting plot thread, list goes on. The characters you meet on your journey are not only completely new to the franchise, but also a ton of fun and genuinely interesting at times. And they're not immediately dropped when their arc is done, as they still get to see use in the overarching story. It's an episodic journey that still builds toward a big end goal, leaving plenty of twists and turns along the way. The stakes feel super high at points, and when you think they've peaked, they get even higher. The established characters are also done plenty of justice, with Peach actually doing stuff instead of serving as a plot device, Starlo being likable again, Bowser and his minions being fun as always, and even the Mario Brothers bonds being tested and their kindness shining through in full, no matter how hard the adventure may get. Thanks to this game being the first in the series with full 3D graphics, they play around a lot more with the animation and camera angles, capturing the sheer scope of this adventure so well. And even though Yoko Shimomura's absence is felt, the music is still pretty damn good for what it's worth. The brothers' overworld skills are very fun to use, with the charge roll being great for getting around quickly and the flowers being a lot of fun to finally throw in the overworld. The combat is also a major highlight of this game. It of course features the same dodging and bros attacks we all know and love, except now the brothers can team up for their jump and hammer attacks, which feel very satisfying to pull off. On top of that, there's the new battle plug system, which can apply perks to your moves when the plugs are ready. It adds so much depth to a somewhat stale system, and it's so much more fun optimizing which plug to use at which time than just blowing all your BP on bros attacks. The bosses in particular are where the combat shines. They have some insane attacks, helped a ton by the more cinematic camera, and the parts where Luigi puts his brain cells together to unleash war crimes upon the boss are just glorious. Unfortunately, this game also brought its series back from the dead with a few annoying side effects. The performance, for one, is not good, at least on Switch 1. Tons of stuttering, and the load times are bad. It's probably better on Switch 2, but I wouldn't know. There's a much bigger emphasis on side quests, with such objectives even getting their own menu akin to other modern RPGs. However, most of them are just fetch quests, and worse yet, all of them can expire at certain points. Game, if you're aware that this would annoy completionists, why'd you still do it? There's an obscene amount of backtracking, with the game forcing you to revisit islands you've already been to several times to progress the story. I didn't find the beginning as poorly paced as other people did, but the pacing gets progressively worse the longer the game goes on, especially towards the end. There are multiple instances where it seems like the game is about to end, only to keep going for another 5 hours or so. Much like Dream Team, this game game is way too long, and so much of its 40-hour runtime could have easily been trimmed down. It's kind of a shame because putting aside the padding and backtracking, the game's finale is honestly fantastic. The tone wildly shifts into a serious, near-hopeless fight for survival against a villain so unhinged he'd give the Kirby series a run for its money. It pushes all the characters to their absolute limits, and it genuinely got under my skin. I've obviously played much darker RPGs than this, but you kind of expect a lot of those to be dark. Seeing a happy-go-lucky island adventure shift into an apocalyptic nightmare just hits way harder for me. And to be honest, seeing Concordia together again at last, only for the brothers to be returned to their world, kind of made me a little emotional. Brothership may be full of some rough seas, but it's proof that Nintendo is finally willing to let Mario take risks again. The franchise can go beyond its staple world and cast. It can tell stories, it can get dark, it can explore themes like loneliness and the power of connections. It may not be perfect, but it's still a good-ass game and solid proof that Mario is officially in a new era.
Me and the boys at 2 a.m. looking for beans!
From the last Mario and Luigi to the first Mario and Luigi, here we have Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. This is a very wacky and offbeat RPG, a perfect tone setter for the sheer zaniness of the series. The Bean Bean Kingdom is a very fun setting. I love its open structure, reminiscent of 2D Zelda, and its numerous regions have a ton of charm. Mario's and Luigi's abilities make the overworld super fun to traverse, especially as you get more of them. It's a little annoying having to cycle through all of them with the shoulder buttons, a problem later games also have, but it is what it is. The big thing that stands out though is the combat. You've got your typical jump, hammer, elemental attacks, and their action commands, along with the first iteration of Bros attacks. The ones in this game are based on the brothers' overworld abilities, and they're tons of fun to seek out and wail on enemies with some wild inputs. And when it's the enemy's turn, by timing your button presses, you can dodge and even counter their attacks. Claire Obscure thinks it's so special for featuring action commands. Well, newsflash, Mario did it first. Respectez vos boutons de nez. You meet plenty of kooky characters on your journey, and you never really know what wild shenanigans will happen next. This game has such a bizarre sense of humor that really sets it apart from its papery cousin. The sprite art is very well done, both in the original and the remake. The GBA version's characters are a lot more expressive, but at least the 3DS remake's environments are a lot easier on the eyes. And the plot is honestly so stupid, but I love it for how stupid it is. The sheer amount of plot holes, contrivances, and assholes is just hilarious, and I wouldn't want it any other way. It's a bit on the shorter, simpler side, but Superstar Saga still did a great job at laying its series foundations, and even after all the refinements later games made, it still outshines the rest, with one obvious exception, but we'll get there in a bit. If you haven't noticed from past rankings, quite a few series fell victim to first game syndrome, and Mario is no different. While I like the original Super Mario Bros., it's definitely janky and of its time compared to later 2D entries. Super Mario Kart ranked near the bottom of the Mario Kart ranking, with many people arguing that it should have been at the bottom. And sorry to spoil a potential future ranking, but I also don't exactly think highly of the first Mario Party. Well, I'm happy to report that the original Mario RPG, Super Mario RPG, is great. It's a much more offbeat, lighthearted, and newcomer-friendly RPG compared to many others at the time. It starts out how you would expect, with Mario heading off to save Peach from Bowser again, only for the game to throw a curveball, or giant sword in this case, and thrust the world and characters we know and love into a completely new adventure. One that, thankfully, doesn't fall prey to many pitfalls of JRPGs of old, like random encounters, padding, and grinding. Enemies can be seen just wandering around in the overworld, and you can walk around them if you don't feel like fighting. The combat itself is a lot more involved than other turn-based systems. There are unique button inputs you can use for each weapon and attack to deal more damage, and you can also block attacks by pressing A at the right time. It's a little hard to tell what to press at what time, at least in the SNES version, and the sound design doesn't exactly make it clear, but it's still a great system that keeps players on their toes. And due to how well balanced the game is, there's never any need to grind. So long as you regularly fight enemies, you'll still be ready for each upcoming boss. This game has such a charmingly unserious vibe. There are so many wacky characters and enemies, the regions you travel to are full of their own brands of whimsy, and the game's sense of humor is so bizarre I can't help but laugh. Having Peach and Bowser join Mario in the adventure was a nice breath of fresh air, and they both get fleshed out a ton and have plenty of moments to shine. And the new party members, Mallow and Geno, are great to have as well, with the former having a compelling story of finding his birth family and the latter just being a cool guy. The pre-rendered graphics are very high quality for the SNES, being quite reminiscent of Donkey Kong Country. The soundtrack is iconic, as you'd expect from Yoko Shimomura, and the ending and credit sequence might be the best in the whole franchise if I'm gonna be honest. This game's definitely a lot simpler compared to some of Mario's later RPGs, and it's kind of a pushover in terms of difficulty, but I still can't fault anyone for picking this as their favorite. Super Mario RPG is a cult classic for a reason, and a great entry point into RPGs for both Mario and the player. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle was a fun game and crossover, but it wasn't exactly groundbreaking or in dire need of a sequel. So when said sequel did happen, how did Ubisoft justify it? By locking the in and making the best goddamn Fire Emblem since Path of Radiance. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is shockingly amazing. Not only does it build upon what made Kingdom Battle work, it goes above and beyond to make itself a far more engaging and fun experience. The planets you visit on your journey to stop Cursa are all distinct and enticing, both in their themes and design. They have such creative set pieces and many, rabid people. In Kingdom Battle, the overworld was mainly there as a bridge between battles, but here, it's far more emphasized and fleshed out. The layouts and puzzles are more intricate, there are more NPCs and side quests, and there are enemies you can encounter for skirmishes in typical RPG fashion. The battles themselves are the main appeal of this duology, and boy does Sparks of Hope deliver in that field. You're no longer forced to always use Mario and a rabbit. You can now use any combination of party members you want, which leaves so much room for experimentation. The 6 returning party members are all really fun to use with their new abilities, and the same goes for the 3 new faces, Rabbid Rosa, Bowser, and especially Edge. Seriously, I can't stress enough how much I love Edge. She's so cool and interesting and fun to play, and basically an edgy 12-year-old's Rabbid OC, in the best way possible. The titular Sparks can also add extra abilities to any party member, adding an element to their next attack or granting some other buff. They provide even more freedom to mix and match loadouts, and you no longer need to rely on chance to inflict status effects. The whole game feels very well balanced. You can get through with just about any party, so long as you equip your Sparks accordingly. It helps that there's a much smoother difficulty curve this time, with the game rarely feeling too easy or too hard. Rather than choosing where to move, you can now move and use abilities freely before attacking, which saves a lot of misinputs. The battlefields have a ton of new enemies and mechanics, and they do some very clever things with a lot of them. The objectives are more varied, and the bosses especially have a ton of new mechanics that you really have to play around to come out on top. How Ubisoft, one of the most incompetent companies in the industry, made a strategy game this good is beyond me. Sparks of Hope has excellent design, intricate mechanics, brilliant music from 3 talented composers, tons of side content, a DLC campaign with Rayman, and so many other quirks that make it such an underrated gem. One that I highly recommend, whether you've played Kingdom Battle or not. Hats off to Ubisoft for finally doing something good for once. Now give us a new Rayman game.
We did all the Chuck Quizmoing! One could Chuck Quizmo if a Chuck Quizmo could Chuck Quizmo!
Wow, haven't seen this series in a while. Just goes to show how hard it fell off. When I'm told to describe the charm and creativity the Mario RPGs have on display, the original Paper Mario is the prime example. It seems simple when you break it down to the fundamentals. Bowser has kidnapped Peach, and Mario must journey across the Mushroom Kingdom to save her. Again. Except this time, they go several steps beyond what we usually see. Bowser doesn't just go for Peach. He takes the wish-granting Star Rod as a source of power, seals away the Star Spirits to stop them from interfering, seizes Peach's castle and lifts it into space, and seemingly kills Mario, all in the game's first few minutes. It doesn't just stop there. Across the various regions you visit to reunite the Star Spirits, many of them are facing problems thanks to Bowser and his minions. Between each chapter, you get to witness Peach's side of the story, seeing Bowser begin to panic and concoct a backup plan as Mario gets closer. You really feel the grip Bowser has on the Mushroom Kingdom more than any other game in the franchise, and he gets scarily close to winning. This is easily his most successful outing as a villain to date. This do a lot with a little philosophy thankfully also applies to the rest of the game. Paper Mario 64 has, to date, my favorite depiction of the Mushroom Kingdom ever. Though it uses familiar races and environments the franchise has already used before, they're expanded and fleshed out so much more than other appearances, with different atmospheres, cultures, and general vibes. It really feels like you're on a grand adventure across the kingdom thanks to how tight-knit the world building is. The overworlds themselves make great uses of their themes, as well as the various abilities of Mario's partners. The combat, while simple, is very intuitive. It's a lot of fun trying to make the most of your 2 moves each turn, especially with the action commands being a lot clearer and more elaborate than in Super Mario RPG. Coupled with an adorable pop-up book art style and a charming soundtrack from the original Fire Emblem composer, it's a classic that still holds up very well today. It's an excellent game to play if you want to get into Mario RPGs or RPGs in general, and it deserves to be remembered fondly for taking a familiar structure and turning it into something special. Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story is the best Mario and Luigi game, and it's not even close. Even back when I first played this on its own before binging the rest of the series, I knew it was absolute peak. Of course, Mario and Luigi themselves are a ton of fun here. Traversing both the Mushroom Kingdom and Bowser's Guts is quite fun thanks to their wide array of abilities. The areas are all very cleverly designed, with great layouts and puzzles that really test your knowledge with everyone's abilities. The brothers' combat is arguably at its most refined here. The action commands feel great, the enemies have some creative attacks, and the bros attacks are some of the most satisfying in the series, and it helps that they're not bound to specific brothers this time. The new badge system is also a nice bonus, rewarding you with effects based on your performance. But as fun as the brothers are, let's be honest, the real star of the show here is Bowser. Bowser is my favorite character in the Mario franchise, and his portrayal in this game is a major reason why. Obviously, he's been playable in other RPGs, but in this one, he's basically the main character. We get to witness him at his most vulnerable. He's lost his army, his kingdom, his power, everything to Fawful, and he must claw his way back to his throne himself. His journey towards reclaiming his own legion and eventually the rest of the Mushroom Kingdom, not out of goodwill, but sheer spite, is just glorious. He gloats and wisecracks every step of the way, and his attitude never fails to make me laugh. His combat, where he and his minions tear through larger enemies, is super fun. And despite his cruel exterior, he's still shown to care about his minions and starts to recognize how dangerous the current threats are. There's a wide variety of fun minigames, the giant battles are hype as hell. Okay, besides that one. Fawful is so cunning and hilarious as the main villain. The DS version's visual presentation is some of the series' best, not to discount some of the environments and quality of life of the 3DS remake. And once again, Yoko Shimomura absolutely shredded with the soundtrack. Bowser's Inside Story is everything a Mario RPG should be. Charming, engaging, funny, well written, more interesting and meatier than your typical Mario adventure, and an all-around amazing time from start to finish. I honestly feel kinda bad for playing this game before the other Mario and Luigi's, since fun as most of them are, none of them came close to matching this absolute masterpiece of an RPG. Even so, there's still one certain game from the other series that you probably already knew reigns supreme. I don't think this spot could have gone to anything else. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door might just be one of the greatest JRPGs ever made. It goes so far above and beyond as a Mario RPG and as an RPG in general. The world this game takes place in is full of wonder, with so many distinct areas that are hard to believe exist around the same general landmass. The first few hours do a great job at introducing you to the new mechanics. Chapter 1 may follow the same general structure as most of 64's chapters, with overworld shenanigans, then a new partner, then a dungeon, then the boss. It makes you think it'll just be 64 but more, only for the rest of the game to show its true colors. After the simple start, you'll find yourself commanding not Pikmin, helping them overthrow their oppressors. You'll be fighting your way through an arena to claim the title of champion while solving a mysterious scandal between matches. You'll fall victim to identity theft in a spooky town. You'll voyage for treasure with pirates. You'll solve mysteries on a train. You never truly know what'll happen next on your journey, and there's rarely a dull moment to be found. You'll meet tons of interesting friends and foes on your journey. The partners are far more developed and fleshed out, and their abilities, both in the overworld and in battle, are a lot of fun to use. And that's not to discount Mario's paper transformations, which let you get around in creative ways. The combat is some of the turn-based genre's best, with so many options to attack and defend, tons of badges which allow for wildly different playstyles, and plenty of enemies and bosses that really force you to strategize. You'll be left laughing at this game's barrage of comedy, with many hilarious moments. You'll be on the verge of tears upon learning the tragic stories of some of this world's people. And even as you finish the self-contained stories of each chapter, you'll still be advancing a much grander overarching story. What starts out as a fun treasure hunt soon becomes a race to stop the world from falling into darkness. Like, this game actually made me worried about Peach. Do you realize how hard it is to make me worried about the well-being of a fictional character who gets kidnapped for a living? This game is proof that Mario can be so much more than just bing bing wahoo all the time. It can immerse you in magical worlds. It can invest you in engaging stories and characters. It can stick with you for many years rather than just entertaining you a little for 1 week. Every bit of glaze you've ever heard about Thousand Year Door is true. It is every bit the masterpiece it's been hyped up to be for years. And with the incredible remake on Switch, it can now reach more hearts than ever and hopefully pave the way for all future Mario RPGs to follow. Nintendo, you may piss me and many others off so much, so often, but I'll be damned if you don't know how to make games on this level. Truly a special experience everyone must witness, whether they're a fan of RPGs or not. Well, there you have it. That was my personal ranking of every Mario RPG. Even though these games have plenty of flaws, most of them are full of love and care, and it's no wonder they remained in so many people's hearts for so long. They may not be as prolific as Final Fantasy or as deep as Xenoblade, but a lot of these games are still very high quality and deserve more credit. Of course, there are other Nintendo and non-Nintendo series I should really get around to ranking soon, but as for the battles between Mario and Bowser, I don't know, I'm a little bored. I can only take so many Italian plumber mini-games at a time. Despite that, I still hope y'all join me for the next Mario ranking whenever it comes. It's bound to be a real party.